Hey fellow piano teachers, Kathy Kerr here, pianist, educator, and author and founder of Melody Music Publishers. My video channel is for you, the music teacher, to help you do what you love, teach. Each video will have a new tip just for you, so please smash that subscribe and notification button below to never miss out on a video. The second greatest challenge to a private music teacher after attendance is getting a student to practice. However, your job isn't to make a student practice. Your job is to make them want to practice. When you look at it from this perspective, it may help you change your approach. I'm not talking about an occasional week where a student didn't practice, but a student that perpetually doesn't practice. The responsibility for the student's motivation to practice is primarily on you, the instructor. When a student has a track record of not practicing, your browbeating or guilting them into practice is not going to work. All this does is make the student feel bad about the lessons and may cause them to quit. So music and piano teachers, let's stop doing this. The first step in motivating a student to practice is to find out why they're not practicing. Being too busy is probably the student's biggest reason or biggest excuse for not practicing. For students who have a lot of school functions and programs, their lack of time is your biggest competitor, not only for practicing, but also for taking lessons. Adults have so many responsibilities, it's difficult for them to put in the time to practice. Since a week can go by without practicing, having the student schedule a time to practice will help make it a routine. For kids, I suggest practicing before or after homework, school, or dinner, or practice at the same time as the lesson itself. For adults, it can be before or after work. Whatever time works the best when they're fresh and have undistracted time. Also tell the student to practice even if they only have 15 minutes sporadically. Multiple 15-minute practices can add up to a sufficient amount of time each week. I believe this could actually be the primary reason a student doesn't practice, even if they don't admit it. This reason may be the most difficult to discern. Some students may think it's their fault for not understanding and may not ask you questions. Others may be afraid to ask you questions if you had already explained it. Another reason may be a lack of clear and concise assignments given to them. Never let the student feel intimidated to ask you questions. I tell my students I will explain something 1,000,000 times if needed. And to make sure they understand, I always ask them questions after explaining a new concept. Also make sure your assignments are written down and are clear and specific. After writing down the assignments, again, ask them if they have any questions. Asking them questions will give you more insight into their thinking. And it sets the tone that asking questions is a good thing, making them more at ease to ask you questions. I've heard teachers and parents tell a student to practice an hour a day. That's unrealistic for a beginning student and will ultimately cause them to fail. The beginning student not only doesn't have the discipline to practice that long, but they don't have enough information to practice for that length of time. For the beginning student, the best way is for short, multiple practices. For ages 4 to 8, I recommend 10 to 20 minutes at a time. This time frame doesn't sound overwhelming for a beginning student. As the student progresses, the longer they can practice. The beginning of the practice is when the student is the freshest and gains the most improvement. After exercises and warming up, I tell my students to start with the most challenging parts. Life is messy at times, and you may have a student going through family or personal problems. I don't recommend asking personal questions since you're there as a music instructor only. Without asking personal questions, you can ask them how they're doing. I usually start each lesson asking how their week has been. By showing them you care might be enough for them to focus on the lesson. This may also help the troubled student open up to you. I don't suggest giving them your opinion on their situation, but just by listening and giving them your empathy may be enough to help them. The lack lack of interest may be the most challenging of all, since music may not be everyone's cup of tea.
The first 6 to 12 months is the most challenging part and can be the opposite of fun. It's good to tell the student to give it time, and the better they get, the more fun it will be. If the student is still not interested at the intermediate level, there may be some things you can do before giving up. This is an excellent time to offer different songs and styles and ask the student what they may be interested in. If you've been teaching a traditional lesson, this may be a good time to offer a more by-ear approach with chords and improvisation. Melody Music Publishers has a book titled Chords and Improvisation on the Piano that may be a good resource for you if you're not familiar with teaching by ear.
As a final note, I don't tell my students to practice, I just give them assignments.
During the lesson, they either pass or don't pass. I've noticed that students want to do well to pass, which also motivates them to practice. Their reward is my accolades when they've done well and get to move on to the next assignment. For the young student, I give points when passing each assignment or practicing 5 times in a given week, with a prize after so many points.
You'll be amazed when a young student is motivated to practice when there's prizes involved. I hope this tip helps you to be the best music teacher ever.